Yo, chat. Yo, chat, what's good? Oh, chat. Yo, chat. What's good, chat?
And how they
We're just
function,
gonna talk.
starting with the very first Five Nights at Freddy's, released all the way back in 2014. In the original game, you play as Mike Schmidt, a night security guard who, as the game's title suggests, spends 5 nights at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Your job is to monitor the store's animatronics who get a bit quirky at night, which is to say they try to kill you. Ralph, the previous guard, explains that they believe you are an endoskeleton without a suit, and so they want to stuff you into one to make you complete. However, we learn throughout the course of the game and the rest of the franchise that these animatronics are actually possessed by the spirits of children who were killed in the missing child incident by Fazbear Entertainment co-founder turned serial killer William Afton, who would stuff their bodies into animatronic suits. And now those spirits are trying to take revenge by killing any adult they come across. But that isn't the only bit of deception because, as it turns out in the game's timeline, Mike Schmidt is actually Michael Afton, the son of William Afton, the serial killer. Regardless of his murderous family history, Mike's goal is to survive each night until 6 a.m., which is the end of his shift. And you can do this by using the cameras to keep track of the animatronics. If one of them comes into your office, they will kill you, but by closing the room's door and conserving electricity, you can stay alive. The first game features a few animatronics, but they are all iconic and have been dubbed the classics, with each being inhabited by the spirit of a different one of Afton's victims. Bonnie the Rabbit, an animatronic possessed by the spirit of a boy named Jeremy, is a blue guitar-playing bunny during the day, and at night he becomes one of the most aggressive threats to our safety. In this game, each animatronic has an AI level which dictates how often they move. They all start at 0 at the first night and scale upwards, but Bonnie's rate increases super quickly, and by night 5, he basically has a 25% chance to act every 5 seconds. To make matters worse, he moves in a really inconsistent and difficult path to follow. Bonnie can be found in the middle of the pizzeria, and then bam, suddenly they are at your door ready to kill you. So you just have to.
Hey, chat, hold on. By the way, chat, um, shout out to Upload Media. Shout out, chat. I'm not feeling well, chat. Hold on. I'm not feeling well.
Be prepared at all times. The other highly aggressive animatronic is Chica the Chicken, host for the spirit of Susie, the first of the missing child victims, and the backup singer of Freddy Fazbear's band. Chica originally wasn't owned by Fazbear, instead she was actually the main attraction of Chica's Party World, a competing animatronic group owned by Chica's restaurants. Chica herself was made and created by Fiona and Edwin Murray of Murray's Costume Manor, but at some point she became a member of Fazbear and now finds herself tearing up the kitchen late at night. While her pathing through the pizzeria is a little bit more consistent, she moves more often than any other animatronic, which is made even more unsettling as she tends to lurk close to the office. She carries her trusty cupcake, Mr. Cupcake, and while the movie might try to make you think it's a ruthless killer, it doesn't actually do anything in the game. Just like Bonnie, she will appear outside your door, and all you gotta do is close it to keep her out of the office. Leading the Fazbear band is Freddy himself. He is possessed by the spirit of Gabriel and works differently than Bonnie and Chica. For the first 2 nights, his AI levels will typically stay around 0, and he will have a level of 1 on night 3. This means that for the first 3 nights, Freddy doesn't usually move. But on night 4 and 5, Freddy will leave the main stage, and every time he moves, you will hear a laugh. Once he has moved, he's actually quite difficult to spot in the cameras, usually only being seen by his glowing eyes in the darkness. Freddy moves in a straight line from the stage on the left side of the pizzeria until he gets to your office. Inside of him, there's a music box that plays the Toreador March, the same song that will play when Freddy comes to kill you once you run out of power. And when he's close by or in the kitchen, you can hear this music really, really well. The big difference between Freddy and the other animatronics is that he will never appear outside your door when you shine the light. Instead, if he's near the door and you pull up the camera, he will sneak in and attack you. To combat this, you must close the door when you know he's nearby, and this will keep him away. The last main star of the show is Foxy the Pirate, who's inhabited by the spirit of Fritz. He isn't actually part of the main band on stage. Instead, Foxy resides in his own stage called the Pirate Cove. When compared to the others, he doesn't really operate as well and is believed to be discontinued, with Pirate Cove even being closed. Much like Freddy, Foxy works in a pretty unique way. The player needs to periodically check on Pirate's Cove in the camera, and if they don't, Foxy will make a mad dash to the security office. Mechanically, he has a chance to act every 5 seconds, but if the camera is on him, this will always fail. However, if the player
I'm not gonna lie, Foxy is probably like the animatronic I hate the most, bro. I hate Foxy or Freddy. Those are the worst ones, chat.
doesn't look at him, then there are 4 stages he will progress through at the cove. The first is when he is dormant with the curtain closed. This is a pretty good sign that you're safe. Next, Foxy will begin singing, and if you hear this, it means he is in the cove. But if you see him peeking through the curtains, he is in the second stage. And in the third stage, he will be off the cove and preparing to run towards you at any second. And this brings us to stage 4, where you won't see him at all on his stage. If you're quick, you'll be able to find him in camera 2A, where you can see him running down the hallways at full speed, which is actually the only time that you get to see any animatronic move in the first game outside of a game over, making it all that much more terrifying. However, if you manage to close the door to your office, Foxy will be stopped in his tracks, and you will hear him pound on the door before returning back to his stage to start the process all over again. That said, if you are too slow, he will of course grab you, shove you in a suit, and give you a fairly bad night. While Bonnie's seeming randomness can make him one of the most difficult animatronics to keep track of, Foxy's high maintenance can make him just as frustrating for the players. Now, while Foxy is the last member of the main cast, there is technically one more secret animatronic in the first game, Golden Freddy, a standout from the others as he is in a spring-lock suit. This suit is something that functions as both an animatronic and a costume, allowing someone to actually slip inside and act as the endoskeleton themselves. However, as you might imagine, these are incredibly dangerous and can easily malfunction, which can be an issue as it will pretty much instantly crush whoever's wearing it. Golden Freddy is likely Fredbear, the original iteration of Freddy Fazbear, where instead of being brown with a black top hat and a bow tie, he is yellow and wears a purple top hat. That said, in FNAF 1, he is still wearing a black top hat and appears as a lifeless, empty suit, as Scott has admitted to not having much of a direction when he made the first game, and the idea of springlock suits hadn't even been worked into the story yet. A player can encounter Golden Freddy by checking camera 2B. In that camera, there's a poster of Freddy with a 1 in 100,000 chance of showing Golden Freddy's face with a child laughing. When this happens, he will appear in your office, and if you don't pull up your camera, you will die to a unique end screen of Golden Freddy's face with black eyes and a demon-like scream. Because of this, he is often thought to be a hallucination and completely supernatural. That said, he can be encountered randomly on any night of the game, although he is more common on early nights since you'll have more time to check camera 2B. Another bit of confusion with this character is that we aren't sure who possesses them. It could be Cassidy, the last of the 5 kids. However, some people also believe that a character introduced in the next game, the Crying Child, or Evan Afton, or Dave Afton, no one can really agree on his name, but we're going to stick with Evan for the sake of this video. Either way, people believe that he could be possessing the suit as well, suggesting that Golden Freddy is an animatronic with multiple souls attached to it. This does have some evidence to back it up though, through the Week Before interactive book that came out last year. Unfortunately, it gets even more complicated as this isn't even the last possible soul in Golden Freddy, with Ralph, or the phone guy, potentially also possessing the suit after the events of the Week Before. Then we have Andrew, a character from the Fazbear Fright novels, who is believed to possess the suit, which didn't get given consideration until Fazbear Fright's Into the Pit was given a game adaptation and made to be canon. Not to mention, Into the Pit suggests that Andrew was an unknown 6th victim of the missing children incident. And lastly, in the Silver Eyes trilogy, Michael Brooks is yet another child said to possess Golden Freddy, and retcons him into the missing children incident as well. As you can see, this topic is still pretty complex and messy despite 10 years of lore. Whichever you decide to believe though, whether it is one of them, 2 of them, or all of them is completely up to you. Now, there is technically one more animatronic that I'll mention just in case people get mad about me ignoring it, and that is Endo-01. Which is quite literally just an endoskeleton. It sits on the table in parts and services and sometimes will look at the camera, but it doesn't present an actual threat to the player outside of maybe giving them a small scare. Once you've managed to outwit all of these animatronics though, Night 7 comes and goes, and you are fired for being a security guard for, quote, tampering with the animatronics, general unprofessionalism, and odor. Which brings Five Nights at Freddy's 1 to a close and leads us into the second game and all of its animatronics. Released only 3 months after the original, FNAF 2 takes place during 1987 at a different location. You are once again a new security guard named Jeremy Fitzgerald, who again works from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. Being a new game, it needed new mechanics, so all of the doors have been removed and you have no more power. Instead, you have a flashlight with batteries that can light up the main hallway, where you will see various animatronics. You also have 2 vents where animatronics can come through as well. This game also offers a panic sound that echoes whenever you're in danger. When an animatronic enters the security office, you have to throw a Freddy mask onto your face, which makes the animatronic think that you're one of them. And I will preface out the gate that many of these story elements that take place in this game have either been retconned, abandoned, or expanded upon immensely after the game came out. The missing children incident happened in 1985 at a Freddy Fazbear Pizza location we never see. Because of this incident, the location closed down and they had to open a new one in 1987, which is where this game takes place. And of course, with a new pizzeria comes a new set of animatronics. However, our first set of new animatronics actually comes from the remains of the original group, as their suits are able to be found in pieces in parts and services and have been dubbed the Withered animatronics, each of which is still inhabited by the spirit of the same kids from before. Withered Bonnie's body is the most whole, but his face and eyeballs have been ripped. Unlike FNAF 1, Bonnie's path is linear and doesn't involve him teleporting around the pizzeria. He'll start in parts and services, pop into the hallway, and then before he enters your office, he will crawl through the left air vent. If he makes it into your office, he will promptly give you an early retirement unless you manage to put on your Freddy mask in time and send him away. Withered Chica is also missing several parts of her and has become truly terrifying to look at, or at least she would be if she wasn't always T-posing. She's essentially the mirror version of Bonnie. She acts in a very similar way, but comes up through the right side rather than the left. Withered Freddy, unlike the rest of the original band so far, is in pretty good condition. Freddy will start in parts and services and work his way down the hallway, eventually peering into the office before entering it. Withered Foxy also stayed in decent shape, and just like the first game, he operates differently than the rest of the crew. While he does start off in parts and services, when he gets up to move, he will stand at the end of your hallway. Unlike the majority of the animatronics in this game, Foxy will not be fooled by the Freddy mask disguise. Instead, you will need to shine your flashlight at him a couple times down the hallway, which will make his sensors short circuit and cause him to go back to parts and services. But if you fail to do this, he will pounce at you from the hall and take you out. The last remaining animatronic from the original game is Golden Freddy, who plays a much more prominent role in this game. On night 6, Ralph will ask the player why they are there as the restaurant has been permanently shut down. Someone used a yellow suit to kill people, and now none of the animatronics are acting right. The suit used for this murder was Golden Freddy, and the person who wore it was William Afton, this time in an event called the Dead Children Incident. This likely happened just before Jeremy started his job here, since the animatronics are still acting up on his first day. Many people point to Afton using the Spring Bonnie suit here for this killing, but that is seemingly impossible because the suit was sealed away 2 years prior to this game taking place. Not to mention, it is no coincidence that Ralph mentions the killer using a yellow suit on the location that Golden Freddy appears, especially as a key character. Regardless of the lore arguments, Golden Freddy in this game attacks the player in 2 ways. The first is similar to the original game, with him appearing slumped over in your office. To get him to leave, you put on the Freddy mask and he will slowly evaporate away. The second way is when you flash the light down the hall, you will see a gigantic floating Golden Freddy head. If you shine it again, the head will begin to fly towards you. To make them go away this time, you need to not shine the light on him. Because of both of these strange attack patterns, it is heavily believed that while there is a Golden Freddy suit on location, the one that attacks is actually a supernatural one. Outside of the Wither group, we have a plethora of new animatronics, like the toys, who are all possessed by unnamed victims of the Dead Children incident. The incident in the Save Them minigame appears to have 5 children, suggesting that each of the toys is possessed by a correlating child. That said, these possessions are never mentioned or discussed again after this game. The toys were designed to be as friendly to kids as possible, and were also given facial recognition software to be able to detect criminals who entered their premises. This was likely because they were worried about Afton showing up again. Notably, the toy animatronics are the first introduced in the series who are allowed to roam freely during the day. Toy Bonnie is an animatronic made from parts of Withered Bonnie. When the light is flashed on the right air vent, he can be seen poking his head in. Once spotted, you need to put on the Freddy mask and he will peacefully glide across your office without incident. But if you don't put the mask on in time, he will jump scare you the moment you pull up your monitor. Toy Chica is an animatronic made from the parts of Weathered Chica, and once she leaves the main stage, she will lose her beak. However, the only reason given for why this happens from Scott is, quote, because it's creepy. When you shine your flashlight down the hall, she can sometimes be seen roaming by. In a similar way to Toy Bonnie, she will peek her head through the left air vent, and you need to put on the Freddy mask to avoid being jump scared. Now, as you might have guessed, Toy Freddy is an animatronic made from the parts of Withered Freddy, and much like the other Freddy, he is all about interacting with the hall. He can be seen coming down the hallway until eventually he enters your office through the main door. When he does, his eyes will turn completely dark and you'll need to throw on your Freddy mask to stop him. As for Foxy, there isn't a toy version of him, and instead we have Funtime Foxy. They went for a complete thematic overhaul, turning Foxy from a rough, often scary to kids pirate into a friendly white fox. To try and further push this new Funtime Foxy, they placed them in the Kids Cove, where kids could play with Foxy as much as they liked. However, what they didn't expect was for kids to tear Foxy apart as much as they did. In fact, this happened so often that they eventually gave up fixing him and dubbed the animatronic as Mangle. Mangle appears to be a combination of multiple different animatronics, as in later games they speak in many different tones and voices. It is easy to tell where they are in the building as they give off a loud radio-like sound. He will appear hanging in the hallway but will attack the player through the right air vent. When they poke their head into your office, you will clearly be able to hear the radio-like noises and must put on the Freddy mask to make them leave. If you don't, Mangle will enter the office and sit on top of your desk, at which point they will randomly reach their head down to bite you. As a result of the toys being allowed to roam freely, the year that the game is set in, and Mangle biting the player's head, many people believe that this animatronic is the one responsible for the infamous bite of '87.
Cause she is.
Hey, co-pilot. What mic is she using?
Looks like the
Whatever
HyperX Quadcast 2S.
The
the
last of
art
the
song.
toy animatronics is Balloon Boy, a small, round boy whose whole purpose is to give balloons. When moving through the pizzeria, he will say hi, hello, or laugh occasionally. He will try to enter your office through the left air vent, but can be stopped by wearing a Freddy mask. However, unlike the other animatronics, Balloon Boy doesn't really pose a threat, at least not directly. Even if you let him enter, Balloon Boy won't attack you. Instead, he will laugh constantly and try to stop you from hearing the sound cues that the other animatronics give off. He can also disable your flashlight, leading to you inevitably being killed by Foxy. So while he isn't deadly, he will lead to your death if you don't stop him. The last animatronic in this game, although certainly not the least, is the Marionette, or the Puppet, an all-black puppet with a white mask and teardrops coming from their eye. In-game, the puppet resides in a jack-in-the-box, and to keep them at bay, the player must occasionally wind the music box found on cam 11. When this music box runs out, the puppet will emerge and you will hear a rendition of Pop Goes the Weasel. The moment that this begins to play, you will almost certainly die, with the puppet lunging at you through the hallway similar to how Foxy does. This puppet is haunted by Charlotte Emily, who was Afton's first victim in 1983 and is the daughter of Henry Emily. Henry was the co-founder of Fazbear Entertainment alongside William, as well as the creator of most of the animatronics and the spring-lock suits. Afton lost his son Evan in 1983 due to the Fredbear animatronic biting down on his skull, and as a result, he became so obsessed and frustrated with how Henry seemed to be able to live a happy life with his family that he decided to make Henry feel some of his pain by killing Charlotte outside of a Fazbear location, demonstrated through the Midnight Motorist and Security Puppet minigame. The puppet was originally made by Henry to keep track of his daughter, dubbed Security Puppet, and after finding her corpse outside, the puppet collapsed onto her due to the weather. The strong emotions that Charlotte felt as she was dying allowed her to possess the puppet, and from here her spirit would take pity on Afton's other victims and bind their souls to animatronics so that they could get a second chance at life, as well as the first chance to take revenge. Sometime after Charlotte's murder, Afton noticed how odd the puppet seemed to act and began to investigate. This is what led to his discovery of Remnant, a haunted metal infused with the memories and strong emotions of those who died near it. This discovery became his main motive and what led him to committing all of these crimes. Now, with this backstory, in combination with the puppet claiming to be self-aware in Ultimate Custom Night, it becomes quite confusing as to why it is that the puppet attacks the player, since they have nothing to do with Afton. Even to this day, there hasn't really been an explanation given by Scott, and there aren't really any solid theories on this inconsistency either. So let me know your thoughts on it in the comments down below. But that is it for the main animatronic threats. Now it is time for the secret little guys that you can find in this game. The first is JJ, a female version of Balloon Boy who apparently has a 1 in 1,000 chance of showing up under your desk. However, when she does show up, she doesn't attack the player or provide any in-game function. The next secret is Endo02, who, like Endo1, was quite literally just an endoskeleton meant to be used for the toy animatronics. 02 has either a 1 in 1,000 chance to show up in the left vent or a 1 in 10 chance to be in the prize corner, though it does not provide a threat to the player similar to JJ. Because 02 is meant to be used in the toys, it too roams the pizzeria, but since it isn't possessed, it has no reason to attack. Now these next two animatronics' appearances are pretty strange. The first is Shadow Freddy, a purple version of withered golden Freddy that appears in the parts and services room. He has a 1 in 200 chance of spawning in, but he also doesn't attack the player or do much of anything. Many speculate that he is the manifestation of the wicked acts committed by Afton and later became Nightmare in FNAF 4. Shadow Freddy comes back several times through the series, but most prominently we will see him in the FNAF 3 minigames. The other was formerly known as Shadow Bonnie, but is now referred to as RWQ FSF ASXC. Try saying that 3 times fast. This is an all-black version of Toy Bonnie that has a 1 in 1 million chance of showing up in your security office, making it the rarest Easter egg in all of the Five Nights games. When he does show up, he will stare at you and your game will crash. To avoid this, you need to open up your monitor until he disappears. While he serves minimal purpose in the game, he does reappear in later titles, and is believed to be the manifestation of Afton's agony. The last we have here isn't an animatronic, but I feel we do need to include it. It's the Paper Pals. This is a set of 3 paper crafts that sit in Party Room 4 that have a 1 in 1,000 chance to appear in your office on the walls. How they move here is unclear, but they do appear several times in the franchise, like in FNAF 3, FNAF World, Ultimate Custom Night, and Security Breach Ruin. After this, Jeremy Fitzgerald would receive his check and be moved to the day shift, where he would be replaced by Fritz Smith, who also is then fired for the same reasons as Mike Schmidt. Shortly after the events of the game, FNAF 2's location would close down permanently, the toy animatronics for the most part would be scrapped, and Fazbear would be moved back to their original location, going on to refurbish the withered animatronics into the classics. When that location closed, no one in-universe would hear anything Fazbear related for 30 years, which is when the next installment of the franchise takes place. It would only be 5 months later when Five Nights at Freddy's 3 would be released. This game takes place in 2023 at Fazbear Fright, an in-universe haunted house meant to capitalize off the interest of Freddy Fazbear Pizza and the missing children incident, as by this point all of those events are merely urban legends. The location is filled with old animatronic parts and suits, memorabilia, arcade machines, and was so dedicated to their craft that it was built in the first location, as we learn in The Secret of the Mimic. Who we play as is never named and truthfully could be anyone or no one. Unlike the previous 2 games, there is no form of power or batteries. Instead, you have to keep track of the location through the maintenance system, things like audio devices, camera systems, and ventilation. Depending on which of these systems go down, you will lose access to what you can see, what you can hear, or even the oxygen in the room, causing you to black out. You have no door to protect your office. Instead, you will need to play audio in various locations to keep the threats in your building away from you. You can, however, close doors in the vents to keep them from crawling into your office. Night 1, there is actually 0 threat in the building, but on night 2, the staff of the building opens a room that was sealed off, discovering a real, authentic animatronic that had been left to rot, Springtrap. Springtrap was originally Spring Bonnie, the other Springlock beside Fredbear or Golden Freddy. Again, killing Charlotte and noticing that the puppet was likely possessed by her, Afton began to look into an experiment with Remnant. Since she has carried on after death, Afton then speculated that Remnant could be crucial in discovering immortality. To continue experimenting and learning about this, Afton would target unsuspecting children at Fazbear locations, luring them into the Spring Bonnie suit and then killing them. Then he stuffs them into suits themselves and put them as close to their endoskeletons as possible. After the first 5 kids went missing, the suit was sealed away in a safe room in 1985. When Fazbear Entertainment moved back into the first location after the bite of 87, Afton once again had access to his precious suit. Sometime after the 1993 location closed from the first game, Afton would return on a stormy night and harvest the Remnant, destroying every animatronic in the process. What he didn't realize, though, is that by doing this, the spirits of the children would apparate, cornering him to finally enact their revenge. Panicked, he hopped into his trusty Spring Bonnie suit, laughing at the children. However, the rain made his suit unstable, leading the locks to malfunction and pierce his skin as he begins to quickly bleed out. Here he was left to be forgotten, eventually having the safe room sealed away while he was still inside. But dying in the suit did give him exactly what he was searching for: immortality. And ultimately he became Remnant and possessed Spring Bonnie. His body seemed to have aged or decomposed in strange ways, likely due to the Remnant, as we learned through the Dead by Daylight collaboration that his corpse had been mummified. He was locked in that safe for 30 years, but now that he's back out, he is out for blood. Springtrap in games will often try to hide in the shadows or corners of cameras, making him very difficult to see outside of his glowing eyes. And he actively seems to be aware that you are watching him. To keep him away from the office, you can play an audio cue of Balloon Boy using the monitor. When you do, he'll go to that room to investigate, likely because he assumes that there are real children in that.
Yo, chat, this is my least favorite game in the FNAF series. This is probably my least favorite game in the FNAF series, I'm not gonna lie, bro.
Room. Sometimes he will crawl into the vent, and when he does, you will have to seal that vent's path to stop him from reaching you. And if he does reach the front window, you are just not surviving. And when Springtrap kills you, he delivers probably one of the worst jump scares in the entire franchise. Unlike in previous games, Afton is the only animatronic in the entire building. However, he is not alone, as the phantom animatronics are meant to aid him in getting close to you. These all technically do not exist, and it is hotly debated what the purpose of them is. According to the What We Found story from Fazbear Frights, the phantom animatronics are hallucinations created by Springtrap, projecting them into existence similar to Shadow Freddy and Bonnie. They only appear once he's roaming the building after all. The goal of the Phantoms is to make parts of your maintenance system fail, usually being the ventilation system. However, they will never end your game directly. Only Springtrap can do that. So let's talk about these Phantoms. Phantom Freddy is a green, burnt version of Withered Freddy, and he will walk in front of the office glass periodically through the night. When he does, you can look at the monitor or maintenance tab until he goes away. Basically, just ignore him. If you do look at him while he's going across the hall though, he will appear in your office and jump scare you, causing a ventilation error. Following suit, Phantom Chica is also a green, burnt version of the classic Chica with glowing irises. If you check Cam 7, sometimes you will find her face on one of the arcade screens. You'll need to quickly change to a different camera when you do, otherwise she'll appear in your office and again cause a ventilation error. Next up, Phantom Foxy, who again, a burnt version of Withered Foxy. He will sometimes just appear in your office right in front of the box of toy animatronics. You'll need to either turn away from him and back to your monitor, or quickly open your monitor to make him leave. But if you hold the screen on him for too long, or try to brute force past him, he will jump scare you, and say it with me, cause a ventilation error. That brings us to Phantom Mangle, and as you can imagine, a burnt version of Mangle. Occasionally they will appear on Cam 4, and when they do, if the player doesn't swap to a different camera quickly, they will pop their head over the office window, playing a super loud version of their radio sounds. After this happens, an audio error will be triggered. Following that, we have the Puppet, who makes a return as a phantom animatronic, which again, burnt puppet. She will appear in camera 8, floating in the middle of the room. If a player doesn't swap to a different camera, she will appear in your office, forcing down your monitor and blocking your view until she leaves, which can take a pretty good while. And on top of that, she will cause a ventilation error as well. And our last phantom for this game is Balloon Boy. Again, a burnt version of Balloon Boy. Balloon Boy has a chance to appear on any camera, taking up the entire screen. Just like every other phantom in the game, if you move to another camera, you will be fine. If you don't, unlike his first appearance in FNAF 2, he will actually jump scare you in this game. When he does, your ventilation will need to be rebooted. And that's kinda it for the animatronics in this game, and if that explanation sounded kind of monotonous, that's because the gameplay is. Outside of the excellent necessary additions to the lore, FNAF 3 has gone on to be one of the most controversial in the series because of how boring the gameplay loop is. A player could theoretically keep Springtrap in one room of the pizzeria every single night for the entire game. As for secret animatronics, there is a nightmare cupcake that will show up throughout the pizzeria, and the Paper Pals also make a return. After night 6, Fazbear Frights burns to the ground, either due to a ventilation error igniting a fire, or because of foul play. While the fate of the security guard is unknown, if the newspaper talking about the fire is lit up, we can see Springtrap, which suggests that he survives. And this can be confirmed by the ending of Sister Location. FNAF 3 was marketed by Scott as the last game forming a trilogy. Many were satisfied with how the story ended, but many weren't and wanted more. And so the series would continue after just a few months, where the games would take a trip back to where it all started. Released only 4 months after FNAF 3, Five Nights at Freddy's 4 surprised everyone when it came out. It takes place in 1983, with the minigames focusing on Evan or Dave Afton, because he seems to have 2 names in the continuity for some reason, but he's more often known as the Crying Child. He is deeply afraid of the Springlock suits at his dad's pizzeria location, Fred Bear's Family Diner, because he believes he saw someone being eaten by one of the suits. In reality, that person was just getting into the Springlock suit themselves.
With the Verizon Visa card, you get up to $200 cash back as a new cardholder and 4% in rewards when you shop at the grocery store, get gas, and dine out.
Outside of the minigames, we play as Michael Afton, who is having nightmares, imagining that he is his brother, confirmed to us by the character encyclopedia and the survival logbook. Instead of a security office, we are in a child's bedroom, with our nightmares infesting the building. To keep them away, we have to go to the doors and listen. If you hear breathing, you need to close the doors, but if you don't, you'll have to keep scouting. And if you don't hear the breathing, I don't blame you, it can be super quiet. There are also other things we have to do, but I'll explain as we go by each animatronic. As previously mentioned, the animatronics are figments of our dreams, hence the name, the nightmares. Outside of Mike Afton's dreams, these animatronics do not exist, so none of them are possessed. Although it is a little bit complicated since they do show up in Ultimate Custom Night. The first abomination that haunts us is Nightmare Bonnie. He's a horrific, exaggerated version of classic Bonnie. He resides exclusively in the left hallway of the house, and when a player hears him breathing out their door, they need to slam it shut. If they don't, he'll jump scare them shortly after. The nightmare in the right hallway is Nightmare Chica, a horrific version of classic Chica. They're even equipped with a nightmare cupcake to fit. She functions exactly like Bonnie does, the only difference is that sometimes instead of scaring you herself, she will use her cupcake. Both Chica and Bonnie are active from nights 1 to 4. Now that said, the hallway isn't the only place that threats can show up. Nightmare Foxy can jump out of your closet. He'll become active starting the second night and doesn't originally start out in your closet. He can be seen down both hallways and will run down the hallways similar to how he did in FNAF 1. And if the player fails to keep him out, then he will sneak into the closet where he will remain for the rest of that night. Also similar to the first game, once he's in the closet, he will have a few phases. First phase is simply just a Foxy plush being in your closet, meaning that you're safe. In the second phase, Foxy will be standing upright in your closet. This doesn't need to be addressed urgently, so feel free to do other tasks, although you can close the closet to turn Foxy back into a plush. The third phase will have his face being visible as he is in a clear crouch. This is when it becomes pretty urgent and you should definitely close the door if you can. Then in the fourth phase, Foxy peeks his head out of the closet and will begin to growl at you. Here, you need to close the closet door. If you don't, he will immediately proceed to phase 5 when you leave, leading him to going out of the closet and jump scaring you. Another place that threats will appear is your bed. Periodically, you'll need to change your point of view to your bed. If there's a Freddy plushie there, then you're all good. However, if it isn't, there will be anywhere from 1 to 3 small nightmare Freddys called Freddles, and you'll need to use the flashlight to make them go away. When there are 1 or 2, they'll leave the bed quickly, but if there are 3, it'll take some time to make them leave. If you don't manage to get rid of the Freddles in time, Nightmare Freddy will appear in your room, a messed up version of Classic Freddy who will jump out to scare you. He is minimally active on night 1, but grows more active on later nights as the game progresses. After night 4, all of the previous nightmares become inactive, and they're all replaced with Nightmare Fredbear, an awful, messed up version of Golden Freddy, and what the original Fredbear looked like from Fredbear's Family Diner. Fredbear will test your knowledge of all the previous animatronics, showing up in either hallway, and you'll need to keep him out to stay safe. When you hear Fredbear's laugh, his head, yes, just his head, will appear on the bed or the closet. You'll need to shine the light at his head until he disappears or close the closet depending on where he goes. However, if you hear footsteps with him laughing, that means that he could be anywhere in the house. After night 5, night 6 has the first 4 nightmares active until 4 AM, where they will again be replaced by Nightmare Fredbear. Then on night 7, Nightmare Fredbear is replaced with Nightmare in Nightmare mode, a completely black, somewhat transparent version of Nightmare Fredbear, who is the incarnation of Shadow Freddy, or William Afton's wickedness. Unlike Fredbear, when in the halls, Nightmare will appear right at the door, so you'll need to be quick to actually close it. When Nightmare laughs, he'll appear on the bed or in the closet sometimes. He has a 10% chance of performing a fake laugh movement as well. If you fail to do any of these, Nightmare's face will appear on the screen playing a metallic sound leading to a reboot of the game. Now, an animatronic that I haven't mentioned yet is Plush Trap, a nightmare version of a Spring Bonnie plush who appears in an in-between night minigame called Fun with Plush Trap. This minigame requires the player to listen to the movements in the room and turn on the flashlight when they think Plush Trap is on the white X in the room. You have 90 seconds to do so, and if you succeed, you will start the night at 2 AM. If you fail, you'll either run out of time or get jump scared by Plush Trap. On Halloween, a holiday-themed update was released. It provided no major gameplay changes and instead gave reskins for already existing animatronics, meaning they all function the exact same way as before. These included Nightmare Jacko Chica, Nightmare Jacko Bonnie, Nightmare Mangle, Nightmare Marionette, and of course, Plush Trap is replaced with Nightmare Balloon Boy. all of which are pretty horrific and terrifying versions of their former selves. FNAF 4 would end with Michael Afton and his group of friends jokingly putting Evan in the jaws of Fred Bear, but what they didn't expect is for the jaws to actually clamp down on his skull, killing him instantly. Filled with immense guilt, this would haunt Michael for the rest of his life and would be the driving force for all his actions in the series. This location would be closed shortly after, scrapping the spring-lock suits and creating Freddy, Bonnie, and Foxy while later purchasing Chica. And ultimately they would open Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. However, as Henry didn't know that Afton killed his daughter, he was allowed to stay at the company as well. FNAF 4, much like the third game, was marketed as the final chapter in the series, and it really felt like it. There was a movie planned to tie up loose ends, books began production to help the story make more sense, although they didn't really help, and Scott released a thank you on his website with all of the animatronics, creating FNAF World as a fun spin-off project. While many patiently waited for the books to roll out and news about the movie, something completely unexpected happened shortly afterwards. Bringing the franchise out of retirement once again, Five Nights at Freddy's sister location would release a year and a half after Five Nights 4, making it the first game in the franchise since the original to have a decent amount of development time behind it, and it really shows. Sister location is regarded by many as easily the best in the entire franchise, and it is the first game to step away from the typical FNAF style of sitting in an office and fighting off animatronics. After the missing children incident, which occurred in 1985, Afton wasn't sure if Freddy's would ever open house again, but he still wanted to experiment with Remnant. So he established Afton Robotics LLC and then opened Circus Babies Entertainment and Rental, where he built the Funtime animatronics. All of the Funtimes are extremely advanced, including full functional AI personalities that can think for themselves unless certain conditions apply. They also have moving faceplates to allow for easier maintenance. Unlike the other pizzerias, this location was underground and the animatronics were specifically made to capture or kill children. Then, sometime after the location from FNAF 1 closed in '93, Afton broke the animatronics apart to harvest their remnant, which is what we learn about in FNAF 3. Even though the Follow Me minigame seems to all take place in one night, in the lore it takes place over many nights, or at least it was retconned to. Afton gathers all the endoskeletons from the classics, melts them down, and then injects their remnant into the Funtimes, animating them and bringing them to life. This means that outside of Circus Baby, who was put separately, everyone else is possessed by a mixture of the missing children. Of course, at the end of FNAF 3, Afton would meet his end and would be sealed away. Now his son, Michael Afton, curious as to where his father randomly disappeared to, begins to try and search for his dad, leading him to becoming the night guard at Circus Babies, as well as our player character for the sister location game. The animatronics act very differently in this game compared to all the others so far. Circus Baby is a small clown girl and the main focal point of Sister Location, who despite how important she is to the story has minimal screen time in the actual game. She comes with some things that many consider to be harmless, like the ability to dispense ice cream, fingertips that can inflate balloons, and the ability to accept song requests to sing any song. However, there's also some things that aren't so harmless, like the claw that she has in her stomach. When a child is alone and close to her, she will lose control of herself, and that claw will reach forward, grabbing the child and pulling it inside. The only time that she ever got to be on stage, she did manage to successfully get a child, although it probably wasn't what Afton wanted or expected. Baby captured his daughter Elizabeth, and after this event, Baby was placed in a sector of her own where she could no longer be allowed on stage. As you might expect, Elizabeth didn't survive, and she went on to possess Circus Baby. While Baby had her own personality through her AI, Elizabeth's spirit gradually became one with Circus Baby, and eventually it seems like she took control of it. Because of this combination, Circus Baby had become incredibly cold, seemingly devoid of emotions, and highly manipulative. She even kidnaps the player by putting us in a spring-lock suit. Baby only had one goal in mind, to escape and go above ground, all so that she could get back to the life she used to live. Now, Circus Baby only appears one time in the actual game outside of voiceovers, and it's on night 5 with a parts and service repair. All you have to do is follow her instructions and retrieve a card so that she can continue to speak to you, giving you instructions on what else to do. However, Baby does not appear in the custom night of this game. And then there is promotional material, where Circus Baby is shown to be accompanied by Bidababs, a group of animatronic babies that appear on night 2. When you hide under the office desk, you have to keep the door closed. Bidababs will peek at you through the door to try and open it, and if they open it far enough, they will jump scare you. Bidababs reappear in custom night, attacking only through the vent that is directly in front of you. If you hear metal sounds, that means they are right in the air vent at the entrance, and if you close it, they will leave. But if you don't, they will enter and kill you. Ballora is another of the Funtime animatronics who also has a more sinister purpose than what appears on the surface. She's designed with an audio-active sensor, making her respond to sounds. She has the ability to detect her own balance, along with a collision detector to keep her from running into walls, which makes sense given that she is a ballerina and needs to balance herself. She also has a music box that isn't mentioned in her blueprints. And lastly, she has the ability to deter and distract parents or children, isolating the kids so that they can be easier to kill.
Reach your impossible, Lenovo Legion.
Give big, save big at Nordstrom Rack.
Ooh, big gift energy.
The biggest gifts and the biggest deals up to 70% off. For loved ones big and small. All the biggest brands. Everything for the holiday season.
Including gifts for you.
And get an extra 5% off with your Nordstrom credit card. That's big. Give big, save big. Nordstrom Rack.
On night 2, you'll have to navigate your way through the Ballora gallery. You'll need to move slowly and quietly because if you move quickly, she will come to jump scare you. You can tell if she's nearby due to the aforementioned music box, so when she's close by, just stand still. Ballora reappears in custom night as a threat in both of the hallways. You'll need to listen out for that same music box tune, and if it's close, you need to close the door immediately. If you don't close them in time, she will of course jump scare you. And if you run out of power, she's actually the animatronic that will kill you. Ballora is accompanied by mini-renas, which simply are just smaller ballerinas. On night 4, you'll be trapped in a spring-lock suit, and the mini-renas will attempt to crawl into your suit as you try to escape it. To make them go away, you need to wiggle while in the suit to try and get them to fall off. This moment with the spring-lock suit and the mini-renas was actually so difficult to complete on release that it had to be updated to be made easier. The mini-renas will appear twice in custom night, both times being a pretty big nuisance. The first is in camera 6, where they will appear around the oxygen canister and try to drain it. To make them go away, you have to give them a controlled shock. If you don't, similar to FNAF 3, your screen will go black and you won't be able to see very well. The other mini-renas show up in your office and cover your screen while laughing, making it both hard to see and hear audio cues. What can make this more frustrating is that while sometimes one may show up to 5 can show up on your screen at any given time. And there is absolutely no way to make these things go away. You'd kind of just have to suck it up and deal with it. With that though, we can move on to Funtime Freddy, a pink and white version of Freddy Fazbear with a Bonnie hand puppet who was made with intentions similar to Circus Baby. He has a proximity detector to see how many children are in the area. His puppet Bon Bon has the ability to detach itself and keep track of where parents are in the location, and he can mimic voices. And lastly, he has a machine claw to store kids in his stomach cavity just like Baby. Funtime Freddy's first appearance is on night 2 in the breaker room, giving us probably the scariest sequence in the whole game. You're tasked with fixing the breakers to turn the power back on, and every now and then, the light will flicker in the room, illuminating it as Funtime Freddy moves through the darkness. If Freddy gets too close to you, you will need to play a radio that you have of Bon Bon's voice lines. They'll calm him down and he'll return to where he originally was. But if you don't, he will jump scare you, and that would especially suck because you'll have to crawl all the way through Ballora's gallery once again. Freddy will reappear in custom night, chucking Bon Bon at you, and you'll have to listen to which side of the facility he's on. If he says something along the lines of Bon Bon go get him, then you'll need to close the door on the side that sound comes from, and then you will hear a thud indicating that the attack failed. If he says get ready for a surprise, Bon Bon will attack from the opposite side that Freddy is on. If you fail to close the door in either time, you will be killed by Bonbon. And speaking of Bonbon, they have the ability to detach from Freddy's arm and roam around, as they are meant to look out for where parents are, or alternately to look for potential targets. On night 2, Bonbon's voice is your ally to keep Freddy away, but on night 3, you'll come face to face with Freddy again. This time, Freddy isn't the threat though, as he is inactive and you'll simply need to repair him. Instead, Bonbon is the threat. You'll need to keep track of him with your flashlight and boop the black button on his body to subdue him for little bits at a time. And of course, you need to keep doing this until the repairs are done or Bonbon will get you. Bonbon does return on custom night, but since we've already talked about that with Freddy, I won't mention it again here. What I will talk about is a custom night exclusive, a pink version of Bonbon called Bonette. Bonette has the same purpose of tracking people, and in custom night, she will shuffle across your screen starting from the left. You'll need to boop her nose to deactivate her, otherwise once she gets across your office, she will jump scare you. And that brings us to the last poster child for this game, Funtime Foxy, a pink and white version of Foxy. This one works in a very similar way to Intact Mangle. Foxy has a very sensitive light sensor, can copy voices like Freddy, and has the ability to repeat phrases it hears. It has a scent release feature for some reason, and it also has a floor anchor allowing it to grab onto people and firmly hold them in place. On night 3, to get to parts and services, you'll need to crawl through the Funtime gallery and use your camera to flash it every once in a while to see where Foxy is and how far the door is from you. However, if you use it too much or too little, Foxy will jump scare you either way. But no matter what, after you do maintenance on Freddy, Foxy will jump scare you so that baby can kidnap you for the Night 4 Springlock scene. In the custom night, Funtime Foxy does return behind what appears to be the Pirate Cove curtains. It's on Cam 7. This isn't the only coincidence, as Funtime Foxy acts practically identical to Foxy from the first FNAF game, having 5 phases. Phase 1, Foxy's behind the curtain, meaning you're safe. Phase 2, they peek through the curtain. Phase 3, they will come out of the curtain. Phase
Oh, it's so unfortunate.